Oh, it's too late.
Good evening, guys. So just give it a few minutes for the stream to catch up, as always. So here we go. We are live. I will share that to my personal page. And pick up the feed. And pin that to the top of the page. Brilliant, guys. Brilliant. There we go. Hey, guys. Welcome to Live and Undrugged Series 2, Episode 12. This evening, I am with actor, writer, artist, Jackey Neyman Jones. Thanks for coming on, Jackey.
Thank you.
You know, I know it's been put back once or twice, but it's great to finally get you on. I want to take you back to the start of your journey, really, and see where you come from.
Okay. Well, I grew up in the west part of the United States in Texas, and I lived on the Mexican border of El Paso, Texas, and my father was part of the local community theater group, and he was also an artist and did many other things. But in 1966, he was asked by another actor in the community theater if my dad would want to be in a film he was creating. So this man, Hal Warren, had wrote, produced, and he acted in this movie that he had written. And he knew he wasn't making a good movie from the start, but his main goal, he's a salesman in life, and his main goal was, he was thinking that maybe he could bring interest and the film industry to the Southwest. And so he made this film. He invited my dad to star in it, and they needed a child, and my dad had one of those, so I got to be the child in the movie. Our dog had the right look. He was a Doberman. He was in the movie. Our car, my dad did all the props and the art. The whole look of the film was his, and my mother made the costumes. My great-grandmother's quilt was on the bed. So to me, it was like a family film, and as a kid, it was the best summer of my life until the premiere in 1966. So the writer, Hal Warren, being a salesman that he was, he got put on this big Hollywood style premiere with a searchlight and a red carpet and a limousine to bring the actors to the front of this 850 seat theater in downtown. And but he only had a budget for one limo, for one thing. So he had all the actors and everybody show up and wait in the alley behind the theater, and the limo would come around, pick up a group and drop us off in front. And even at that time I was 7, and as a 7-year-old child, I remember thinking, am I the only one? Somebody else must notice, you know, it's the same car and driver. So we all go into the theater. Hal had invited all the local luminaries, you know, the mayor and the police chief and all these people. And we go in, and the movie had happened so fast, I don't know, on such a budget, that it wasn't very good. And it started, and so my dad made sure we had good seats. We sat about 5th row center, and we knew it wasn't going to be a good movie, or the adults did, but so the lights go down and the film comes up, and it becomes obvious that this is really a bad film. And by the end of it, everybody that was in that film got the hell out of there as quickly as they could. And it was, somebody described it as some kind of crime scene where everybody just splits up and never speaks of it again. So it showed that one night, and then the theater canceled the rest of the run because it was so bad. And then it disappeared. I mean, nobody talked about it. And I grew up, like I said, that was the best summer of my life. And in high school, I started looking for it. And this is pre-internet. And I looked at university libraries, and I just couldn't find it. And then in 1993, a show on Comedy Central came up that's called Mystery Science Theater 3000. And they showed the movie, and it became an instant hit. And for their annual Turkey Day Awards, it's been voted several times as one of the fan favorites, but it's also famous as being known as the worst movie ever made.
What's the movie?
It's called Manos, The Hands of Fate. So the title alone should give away some of it, because manos is Spanish for hands. So it's redundant for one thing. But it's been taught in film school as film classes as everything not to do in filmmaking. You know, the editing, the direction, the acting, everything. It was shot on a Korean Vietnam style war camera that only shot 32 seconds at a time, and it was wind up. And it had no sound. So the whole film was dubbed. And there were 9 women and 1 6-year-old girl who were all dubbed by the same woman. So nobody bothered to tell the little kid on the set that this was the case, that my voice didn't matter on set. And so I would think I wasn't saying a line loud enough, and Hal would say, "Oh, don't worry about it. Let's move on. We'll just fix it in the lab." And even as a child, I remember thinking, I wonder how he's going to fix all of this. I mean, it was just obvious. So my dad was an artist, and he made, like I said, all the props and everything, and from painting and sculpture and metalwork, he really put a lot of his heart and soul into this, and a lot of it was already his existing work. But I followed in his footsteps, and I've always been an artist, and I've always been a self-starter and self-employed, and I've created a number of businesses over the year from nothing. I mean, literally from just an idea or a dream, or somebody says something, I go, "Oh, that's a good idea." And I just realized, like a couple hours ago, when I was talking to a friend in front of the post office, and I was trying to catch her up on some of what I'm doing, and she said, "Wow, that would make my head spin." And I thought, yeah, okay, so I feel a little better validated. I don't feel like I'm as disorganized as I think I am. It's just that it's hard for me to turn down a new idea or project, because everything's so interesting to me. I just want to explore it further. But as a result of this film, I've been a guest at many Comic-Con and horror conventions, and I've met quite a number of celebrities and people that I admire, and it's just been an amazing journey. And this was in 1993 when it was discovered. So now, all these years later, just a lot of new opportunities are coming. I've been teaching painting classes for about 7 years. You know, those, I don't know if they have them there. They call them paint and sip parties, where people go for a 2-hour painting at a bar or restaurant. And I've been teaching those. And then with COVID, I've had to find other directions. And now I'm starting some online painting classes that are Mystery Science Theater related. And I was able to go on a special tribute online show on Friday night with the original hosts, Joel, and so far, I mean, there's a lot of interest. It's really great. There's a lot of things that I'm doing right now. And then I have my own art. And then I wrote a book called Growing Up with Manos, The Hands of Fate. How I was the child star, the worst movie ever made, and lived to tell the story. That's the whole title. And I have to say, I'm 4.5 stars on Amazon. So I'm very proud to say I wrote a really good book about a really terrible movie.
Yeah, I think some movies are just out of time. I mean, as you can probably see, I've got a big affinity for movies, VHS and things like that. And I think some movies are just made out of time. And I think that we're now in a time when we don't take film too seriously. Some people take it way too seriously, but most people don't take it too seriously. And things like that, they come around and they create a movement. I'm a big fan of B movies anyway. I'm a big B movie fan. Roger Corman and Ed Wood, and especially Roger Corman. But I must admit, until your representative got in contact, I'd never heard of the film.
Well, I mean, it's a very tight knit community. It's a passionate fan base, but it's just, there's so many things to be involved and interested in that, it just takes up this one segment. But one of the things about the film that I've learned over the years through the fans is that even though it's terrible and completely inept, but people can see the passion behind it. And I've explained it. It's like anytime you get creative people together, like to do a play or a project, they're dedicated, and nobody wants to be the person that says, I'm out of here. This isn't working. You know what I mean? So they often stick it out to the bitter end, just out of that. And people on set definitely knew it wasn't good. In fact, behind the director's back, the crew started calling it mangoes, the cans of fruit. And the crew did things like testing his powers of observation, and it was left in the film. There's one point where my dad's holding his hands out. He's the evil polygamous master, and he's holding his hands out, and right behind him is an empty beer bottle that was planted by the crew to see. You can see a can of lighter fluid in the background when he's holding his hand up that's on fire. There's a lot of things like that. So the crew had to find ways to release their own frustration.
Yeah, I mean, I've been involved with quite a few films, and not to that sort of scale of badness, but I've been involved in some pretty bad films. Where the actors are not really actors, and the filmmakers are not really filmmakers. It's just a couple of guys that have sat in a pub and gone, I could make a film, and then they've decided to do it. And
yes.
you know, I mean, I kind of started a series like that called Asylum. It was a series of short films, um, all improvised, but that took on its own sort of. It did it. When I watch myself back, I look at it and think, well, you know, that's probably I did a Scottish accent and it wasn't great, and you know, but it's got its fan base, and you know there are people that watch it and there are people that still love it, and we still make it on occasion because we love making it. It's cheap, it's simple, and it, you know,
Well, it's
um
fun.
and it's fun to take people to a different level. So did you have scripts and things that you had to read from, or was it just sort of winged and improvised?
No, definite scripts. I mean, the script is horrible as well. And then because everybody had full-time jobs, it was pretty much shot in 8 days. And, you know, so it was nights and weekends. So there were shots that were where the wife says, um, you know, something like it's getting dark and it's obviously middle of the day, very bright. And then there's the time when the police officers get out of the car with their flashlight to go investigate. They can only go like 3 steps in front of the headlights because there's no lighting and it's dark in the desert because that's where it was filmed, in the desert. And then at night, because of the lighting, mostly flashlights, headlights. I mean, there was no electricity out there. And so that brought in the moths. So you see a lot of moths flying around. and the film was expensive and the camera was rented and people who were using it didn't have experience with the film. And because of the time constraints and the money constraints, pretty much all of the film was used. I mean, there really wasn't much in terms of outtakes.
Mm.
And the reason I know that is because I think it was in 2011, this film student from Tennessee bought a box of films, or he was looking for some films to restore and to look at, and he saw a couple titles, and he wanted to buy them, and the guy said, "No, you got to take the whole box." So he did. He bought the whole box, and in it he found this 16 millimeter work print that had actually gone through the camera in 1966. And the crazy thing was, he actually knew what it was. He had been a Mystery Science Theater fan. The other thing is the title on it wasn't even Manos, the Hands of Fate. It was one of the earlier titles, Fingers of Fate. So somehow he knew what he had and he looked it over, and it was filthy and it had Scotch tape for editing, you know, to hold it together. And it was a mess, but he decided it was worthy of restoring. So he did a Kickstarter and went beyond his expectations. He raised almost $48,000.
Wow.
And he restored it frame by frame. And now I've been able to travel and go to special screenings and such, but it blows people away because it's the film that people are used to. The Rift version is like a print of a print of a print. So it's like otherworldly to watch. It's not only, I mean, it's disturbing. It's like looking through a screen door or something in some cases. But this is so pristine and cleaned up that it's an entirely different experience. And then watching it without the riffing going on. So it's like it's strange. It's watching this beautiful version of a really horrible movie. So I like to say that you can see all the mistakes so much clearer.
So You say it's horrible. Why is it horrible to you?
Not to me so much as the audience who, well, like for instance, the people who found it to begin with. They were just talking about it the other day in an interview, how they'd get these movies and they were all public domain films. That was one of the criteria, not just that they were bad, but they were public domain.
Hmm.
And they would get a box of films, and Frank Conniff, one of the members, would go through and kind of pick out some, and then they'd screen them. They'd watch them during lunch, their lunch break, and just start writing script for the riffing. But what every one of them, I've met all of them and I talked to them, and they all said that during that particular screening, all of them were secretly wondering what they were going to do with this film. I mean, it was so bad, they weren't sure they were going to be able to do it. But nobody wanted to be like the one in the room to scream fire, and say, we can't do this. So they did it, and they said it was not easy to riff, although it's pretty funny that they did it. And it became one of their best known episodes. I mean, it's last I heard, it's like 0 or 1 on Rotten Tomatoes. It's way down there.
That's pretty low.
Yeah, but I like to also say that, people ask me why I embrace it so much. And for one thing, my dad was really a talented guy. He was a wonderful man. And there was lots of troubles through the years, like there are in many families. And we were kind of split apart for many years. And then this movie came about, and it gave us opportunities to come together and heal a lot. And that's one of the things that people really love, is the backstory. So I wrote a book about the making of Manos. And I'm so glad I wrote it when I did, because again, it was made in 1966 and I was a child, and now I have 4 grandchildren. So pretty much nobody else that was in the film is still living. But I was able to find people and interview people and talk to family members, and things that I would not be able to do now. So I'm very grateful to have had that opportunity to write that book. But it gives the whole backstory. And then, the other thing is all these amazing, talented projects that have happened since it came out, since it became popular, is the Mystery Science Theater crowd. They're self-described as nerds, but they're very community oriented. They're talented, they're intelligent, they're really interesting, funny people. And so there's been so many projects, like for instance, a puppet theater show called Manos, the Hands of Felt. And it's really funny. You can look it up on YouTube. Manos, the Hands of Felt. And let's see, there's been a couple video games created, an iOS version. There's comic books. There's a couple coloring books. There's been 4 stage productions. There was a rock opera in Chicago, Manos, the rock opera of fate, I think it was called. And then there's been 2 stage productions. And there's a band. They do music. They're Manos, the Band of Fate. And I've just met so many amazing people and been able, just had incredible opportunities to be part of much better projects. And I'm just so blessed and grateful to be, people say, well, why do you embrace it so much? It just means so much to me. And then then I also say I was 6 years old. It's not my fault, right? I was a victim as much as anybody who's watching it.
Do you think that had it been an adequate film, or had it been, you know, a better film, it might have just faded away into obscurity instead
Yeah,
of like it has now and been brought back because it's so bad?
yeah, and I'm truly grateful for that. I mean, it stands out on its own and it has some unearthly quality about, I don't know. I mean, I've never really been able to adequately describe why it's gained such fame, but I am just so happy to go along on the journey wherever it leads me. As an artist, I create and I get involved in too many projects at the same time sometimes because I can't, everything is, it's all interesting. And this has been quite the journey. I don't know, you've heard of Elvira?
Yes,
Yes,
very big
well,
when I was growing up here.
yeah, right. Woo. She she showed that film on her show once. And several years ago, we were both guests at the same uh, Comic-Con convention. And during a break one day, I made my way across the room to try to meet her. She had this long, long line of people waiting to get autographs. And she had a, a woman sitting next to her that looked like was her bodyguard, you know, somebody. So, so I kind of assessed the situation and she was at the end of the table. So I got up close and then I just darted around the end of the table and I squatted down next to her and I said, her name is Cassandra Peterson. And I said, Cassandra. And I just spoke as quickly as I could. I was in Manos, the Hands of Fate. My dad was the master. And I know you did it on your show. And I just wanted to say hi. And she looks at me for a moment. And then the recognition came into her eyes and her eyes got big and very dramatically. She looks over. Oh, in the meantime, out of the corner of my eye, I see this woman starting to get up out of her chair. And I'm like, I need to do this fast and get the hell out of here, you know? so, so Cassandra looks at me, this look of recognition, and then she looks over there and she says, stop the line, real dramatically. And then she pulls me up and we just had this wonderful, very quick conversation where she asked me some questions that she had wondered about. And we took pictures together and she signed one of her that she had there already. And, you know, it's moments like that that just thrill me, make me feel so honored.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. You know, I was very blessed to be part of a film that's done quite well over here called The Souvenir.
The Souvenir?
The Souvenir, yeah.
Okay.
And The Souvenir Part 2, actually. But I was asked to go initially and get involved as a consultant and talk about a certain way of life. You know, because I you know, I'm a recovering addict and, you know, I've gone through that my whole life. So I was asked to go and speak, you know, to the director and the actors and the cast and the crew and the, you know, the whole production. And then I was asked to act in it, you know, and that was kind of, there was no script. It was just improvised. And it was great. And that's, you know, that's kind of opened me to, you know, getting a couple of other parts on things like Locked Up Abroad and playing one of your serial killers, John Eric Armstrong, in Twisted Killers, season 1, episode 2. and yeah, I kind of get the, I was recently contacted by one of the actors saying, we met on the set, and can we open up a dialogue, and I'd like you to chat with me about something. So I kind of get that recognition. I worked on set with some big stars, and it's like it's really easy to get starstruck, but I think that we ground ourselves, don't we?
Yes, yeah, these things, you never know where they're going to lead you, the opportunities, the people that you meet. You just have to stay open. Because of this film, there was a sequel planned a number of years ago that failed. The guy who was running the show was quite arrogant, and he enjoyed being this mystery man. He was American, but he had this fake New Zealand accent that came and went at, and and I mean he was actually a pretty talented musician, but he just decided he was going to make this film, and he got me and my father, and he found other people that had been in the original, and the son of someone who'd been in the original. And in this way, I met people that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to meet or even know they still existed. I mean, and the film failed, but I met all these wonderful people. And because of the cinematographer he had hired, we ended up becoming friends. And then he's moved up the ladder in Los Angeles, and he got involved. He became the cinematographer on a film with the guy that did the costuming for Alien and Alien versus Predator. He built the costumes for the Alien and the Predator. And then in the second film, Alien versus Predator, he actually not only built the costume, but he played the Predator, because he's 6'8". He's a very large man. I mean, I look like a child next to him. I'm 5'2". And so he wrote his own film, and I live in the Western United States in Oregon, in an old small town in the forest. It's all logging around me. The history is the logging industry. So he was making a Bigfoot film, and through the cinematographer, Jay Lee, they knew where I lived, and they knew it just fit into the script. So they brought the cast and the crew the crew and the cast that they needed up, and I got to be part of the locations. They filmed in my backyard. I have a 16-foot Native American teepee that's painted, and my ex-husband is Native American, and so we recreated a peyote ceremony for a scene. And it was great because they filmed in my backyard, in my teepee, and me and my ex-husband and our kids and a couple grandkids and local friends all got to be in this scene. And the movie is called Primal Rage. It's a Bigfoot film, and it's actually really good. It's a good movie. It's made by Patrick Magee. He's the writer and the filmmaker. So look that one up. So with the teepee scene, I'm the woman it's a healing ceremony. And so my ex-husband plays the medicine man, and he's taking something out of my guts, like some cancerous thing or something. And my older son is the drummer. It's really great. I love to go back and revisit things like that. But the opportunities, the things that come, you just never know. And I just say, follow your instinct, follow your heart. You know, be who you are, explore that, see where it takes you.
Yeah, I, you know, I've got a real passion for film and filmmaking, and you know, I think I'd really love to make a B movie, a sci-fi, something
Yeah.
something worthy of the Sci-Fi Channel. I don't know what you call it over there. It's called the Sci-Fi Channel here.
Yeah,
And
it's called that here too. Yeah.
yeah, and you know, something along the range of like Sharknado, or
Yeah. Oh
you know,
yeah.
what's
That'd be
the
fun.
latest one I heard of? Velocipasta.
Oh
Um,
yes. I see what you're,
yeah.
yeah. Oh, you could do something. Oh, here's one. I'm just gonna throw this in your head. What about, with all the DNA stuff and people talking about bringing extinct creatures back?
We have frozen. Are you still there? I do apologize, guys.
I think we got the internet connection sometimes.
Yeah, I do apologize. You froze for a second. Are you still there? Yeah, I think we're just having some connection problems. Hopefully I can get Jackie back. Let's see if we can get her back in. These things are sometimes sent to try us, but we do our best to get it to you. If we can't get her back, we'll get her back for another time. But hopefully we can get her back right about now. So guys, how are you enjoying the broadcast up to now? I think we're going to try and get her back. I'm just speaking to her now. Yeah, she's just trying to reconnect. So we're doing our best to get her back. I could sing you a song, but I don't think anybody wants to hear that. So yeah, while we're waiting, I do have 2 books for sale at the minute. The first one is my first book, A Personal Apocalypse, The Poetic Ramblings of a Troubled Man. It's my memoirs of my mental health battles, my addiction, homelessness, and my ultimate recovery. And my second book, Between the Streetlights and Red Lights, and I spent 6 months working with escapees of human trafficking, sexual slavery, and exploitation. And I tell some of their stories. I also speak about how to spot if anybody might be trapped in trafficking, or if anybody may be a trafficker. So yeah, please do. They're both available on Amazon for $9.95 paperback, or $1.99 on Kindle. but it is free on Kindle Unlimited. Or you can jump on my website, jwgreg.wordpress.com, and you can buy them straight from the store on that page. She's still trying to reconnect, by the way. Her internet went out, and she's just trying to get back. Occasionally these things do happen, and you just get stuck with me babbling and waffling. So I will do my best. It's great to have Jackey on. I really do have a passion for film and television, especially like B movies and old sort of B film and television film. You know, I think it's underappreciated in these days. As you can probably see, I've got quite a few there. I've got some classics and some for good reason, and some classics for not so good reasons. Things like Warlock and Watcher are my absolute favourites. I love some of the old 1980s horror that were more indie and lower budget and not really sort of studio films. You know, I do have quite a few studio films, but I think most of them are what you would class as sort of B-rated or indie movies. Things like the Exterminator movies, quite a few British movies as well. We get a sort of a raw deal with it. I do have a few deleted ones. One of my favourites is Buddy's Song. That's not available on DVD at all. And I came across it quite obscurely. And it's filmed quite near where I'm from, so it's sort of great to have that. You know, a few extra rental copies from what used to be Blockbuster. I was a big sort of video shop hanger out, you could say. You know, I loved it. Yeah, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to get Jackey back. Her internet has gone totally down, and rather than you listening to me waffle on, I'm afraid I'm going to have to leave it for tonight. But what I did hear was absolutely fantastic. I will try and get her back on for a part 2 and a more stable internet connection. And yeah, so yeah, we'll try that in the next sort of couple of weeks, while it's still fresh in mind. So thanks as always to my sponsor, Mr. James Jeffries, and my part-time sponsors at Cannabis on Facebook, Cannabis UK. So yeah, thanks for joining in. Thanks to my fans as always. Always show up to show a bit of support. I shall see you next time. Cheers, guys.